Welcome back to What Happens in Vegas. Today we have Autumn Smith here. I'm so excited to interview her. She's the co-founder of Paleovalley, but have your own story of getting into this, which I just read. So I can't wait to get into that. But thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, I'm so excited. I've heard wonderful things. I'm just appreciative of your support.
Yeah, so let's get straight into it. Like you created this great company with these products that are so well thought out and everything, even to the high standards that I have too, like seeing them, I'm like, these are, things I can really get behind. So what's kind of your story that motivated you to get into creating these products for everybody to enjoy?
It's funny because if you ask any of my friends who knew me in high school as a kid, food wasn't even on my radar. It's not something I paid a lot of attention to at all. And then when I was around 10, I started having debilitating digestive issues that no doctor really knew what to do with. They put me in the IBS category, which means
Mm-hmm.
they rule out more serious pathology. And when you don't have Crohn's or IBD, or, they kind of say, you have IBS. We don't know why, but they told me to take some Beano and
Mm.
relax when I ate. And so I did those things to no avail and just decided, okay, my life's going to have intermittent pain and I'm going to be bloated a lot. And I thought that I could manage that. But when I got into high school, those gut issues started to manifest in other ways, mental health specifically, anxiety, depression. I saw psychiatrists. They put me on antidepressants and they changed my personality. I felt like a zombie. It just wasn't good. And so I started using substances, abusing substances. And I actually did that until I got kicked out of my parents' house. And, my life kind of fell apart. I still pulled it together. It wasn't really until I met my husband in Los Angeles that he said, "Whoa, we can do better than this. Like you can't live like this." I was like, "Well, I don't know any other way. No one has ever shown me any other path." And so we decided to create our own path. And he saw on Google that people in 2007 were using diet to treat digestive related issues, which at the time was like, I didn't even believe it because there was no medical backing behind it. And so we did the paleo diet and my digestive issues went away in 30 days. And then I was like, if I'm the only one who's experiencing this, that's one thing. But I took 200 of my friends through the process,
Mm-hmm.
created a Facebook group. It seemed to positively impact almost everyone I shared it with. And what we decided was there's going to be education. People are doing it well. It was Mark Sisson, Rob Wolf. And what we wanted to do was step into the space where we made this realistic in a modern lifestyle. So
Yeah.
how can because I went on a world tour with Jennifer Lopez for 7 months after I had figured this out. And I couldn't always find the foods to maintain it. And so again, I kind of fell back. I slid backwards. So yeah, we just got into food production without any experience. We were
Wow.
very naive and young and energetic, and it's a good thing. But yeah, we uphold all of the standards because I'm one of those highly sensitive people to what I eat, which can be considered both a gift and a curse. But in this case, it's a gift because I don't deviate. These are the products my family eat, and so we're just really excited to be providing them.
Mm-hmm. Your story sounds familiar to mine. I had a lot of digestive stuff, and probably around the same time as when I found the paleo diet. I was diagnosed with, tentatively diagnosed with multiple sclerosis at the time, but my
Oh,
gut was a complete disaster. And yeah, no one had talked about diet. And I had to find, once they had given me that multiple sclerosis, and then I found Dr. Terry Walls, that's what kind of got me into, right? She has her like Walls protocol. That was like my first introduction. And just like you, it wasn't really on my radar, but I had gastrointestinal issues for my entire life.
wow.
And, I mean, it's the thing that makes the most common sense. Like it's our gut, it's the food hits it. Like, I mean, it shouldn't be something that's like, oh, an aha moment. So it's kind of shocking. And it's been like just inundated into our culture that pills are what fix us. Meanwhile, I mean, it just makes so much more sense that it's what we put in our bodies that's going to make a huge, huge difference, right? And we have a lot coming at us. So at the very least, what we purposely put in our body needs to be clean and have a purpose for our body instead of just breaking us down. So yeah, I relate with that, and that's profound. And even what you said about, you guys just kind of not in the food industry and you just built this business like from kind of passion and what you guys are doing. So, you know, I feel like those products are the ones that resonate with me the most as well. So, but you've gone as far now that you're doing your thesis in food.
Yeah.
Like yeah. So tell us a little bit about that.
Oh, I'm so excited. And yeah, this is a passion project.
Hmm.
And like I said, it changed our lives. And so we want it to change other people's lives too. And so I was working for Tracy Anderson as a celebrity fitness trainer when I had this kind of awakening. And then immediately I stopped working for her after I got back off that tour and I got my master's. So once I got my master's, I felt like, okay, I've got a nice place to work from. And that's when we started creating our products. But since that time, over the last 10 years, I'm like, oh, there's more to understand. I want my primary source of information to be research because it takes about 10, 15 years for that research to trickle down into practice and into kind of like the collective consciousness. So I went back and got my doctorate too. And we are also building a business called Wild Pastures. And I really wanted to understand the environmental and management practices and how cows and animals are fed,
Hmm.
and what that does. So
Hmm.
yeah, I'm working with Dr. Van Vliet, Stefan Van Vliet. He is a genius researcher out of Utah State University and also the Bionutrient Institute. I don't know if you've heard of them, but
No.
Dan Kittredge is creating a handheld meter so that consumers can go and scan a piece of produce and it will tell you what's the most nutrient dense product, right? Rather than incentivizing based upon how much a food weighs or what it
Mm.
looks like. He wants consumers and producers to be incentivized by nutrient density because the nutrient density of our food is the lowest it's ever been in
Hmm.
our history. So anyway, what we're studying, what Van Vliet started, is called the Beef Nutrient Density Project.
Hmm.
And there's producers from all over the world, the UK, North America, Canada, all across the United States. And they're submitting 3 ribeye samples. And he's using metabolomics analysis, which is different. We know there are differences between grass and grain fed when you're looking at vitamin A and E and the fatty acids. But what he's doing is using a more advanced type of methodology that looks at hundreds and thousands of compounds within a food and how they change. And
Hmm.
he's finding that it changes very dramatically. Some meats can have as many phytonutrients or plant compounds as actual plants,
Hmm.
like eggplants, and also the fatty acid composition changes. The paper that we're writing will look at the omega-6 to omega-3
Yeah.
ratio and why that's important. We can get into that if you want to. But yeah, we're finding more omega-3s, obviously a more balanced omega-6 to omega-3 fatty acid ratio, more minerals, more phytonutrients in animals that are raised with grass feeding. But
Hmm.
it even goes beyond that because grass feeding is kind of you can be grass fed and you can be continuously grazing. You can be grass fed and then you can be fed grain. You can be grass fed on diverse pastures with rotational practices. And so he's also trying to delineate, does that matter? And the
Hmm.
research will be taken 2 steps further. He will put the meats into humans so we can see what does that change about their biochemistry once consumed, plant-based, grain-fed, grass-fed. And then also he's conducting a trial where he looks at if everything you eat for 30 days is raised regeneratively, how does your biochemistry change when compared with
Hmm.
food raised conventionally? So it is a massive project,
Hmm.
but that is my dissertation specifically on the fatty acid changes in beef from various production systems in North America.
No, that's amazing. Are they also testing the fat to see like which sort of like chemicals are in it if they're, you know, grass fed versus grain fed or anything like that, like toxic load?
Yeah, no, I haven't really seen them focusing on that, but I do think that's an important area of research as well. But that's not necessarily what they're specifically
Yeah,
focused.
no, that's I was just
Yeah,
I'm
no.
genuinely interested if they're doing that because that's kind of like where my head goes, like where do these toxins go that they're like those foods are so toxic to cows. So if people are listening and they don't understand like why grain fed is more detrimental, it's because of the way the cow um his gastrointestinal system, right? It's made to digest grass and for them to graze and hay, but then they're force fed these other products to kind of fatten them up.
Mhm.
But it's very toxic for them, right?
Yeah, it can cause health issues, definitely in cows. Cows were designed to eat grain. I can't go so far as to say every cow that eats grain is going to get sick, but it will change, especially if those grains, have high loads of pesticides, right?
Hmm.
That's going to be a problem. There's 250 million pounds of pesticides are sprayed on the corn and soy used in animal
Hmm.
feed in the United States every year. And so that's a
Hmm.
huge issue. But also what it does is it changes the volatile fatty acids in the rumen of the cow. And so
Hmm.
different fatty acids come out. So you're going to have higher levels of omega-6 fatty acid, linoleic acid, lower levels of CLA, lower levels of omega-3 fatty acid. And so for some people who are really clued into that omega-6 to omega-3 fatty acid ratio,
Hmm.
it's going to be, for example, in our study, around 8 to 1
Hmm.
for grain fed, which
Hmm.
is above the 4 or 5 to 1 that people would say we would want to stay beneath. And then grass fed about 2 to 1, right?
Hmm.
It for beef. And it can go down. I've seen even it for grass fed producers below 1 to 1.
Hmm.
So there's
Wow.
wide variation, but typically when they're grass fed and they're genuinely grass fed, you're going to see 2.1 and below. And
Hmm.
then you can see even in a other recent trial up to like 20 to 1 a grass fed cow.
Wow.
But that signals, okay, they're
20 to
probably
1 of omega-3 to 6.
omega-6 to 3. So that speaks
Okay.
to the lack of regulation. So this was a
Oh, wow.
yeah, out of Michigan State, and they found because some grass-fed, all cows receive grass, right, in the first part of their life, but
Hmm.
it's that finishing phase.
Yeah.
It's 30 to 60 or 90 days at the end. That's kind of the fat profile that you're going to get when you're eating it.
Hmm.
So if a grass-fed producer has it on pasture but feeds grain at the end, they can still be considered grass-fed because of lax regulation, but
Hmm.
it will change their fatty acid profile. And so, yeah, all of those details are being sorted out. And there was regulation around grass-fed labeling, but in 2016, that kind of got taken away
Yeah.
here in America. So,
So we want to look for like grass fed, grass finished, right? If that's the wording that we're now kind of looking for, and that's what you have in all of your products.
yes.
Um, correct. I have them. I have some of them here. I want to try your those the new meat sticks that I just saw came out. There was venison, and then there's a is there a chicken one too?
There's 2 chickens, there's the buffalo and the teriyaki. The teriyaki I love, and the venison, just like people have really gravitated towards that. It's really, really delicious, and it has all of the, like, original flavored spices in it, and, yeah, but venison is also a really wonderful red meat that has higher
Hmm.
levels of omega-3, higher levels of iron, and, of course,
Hmm.
people really like the sustainability aspect
Yeah.
of
So
as well.
so everyone always thinks omega-3 is fish. Like they don't realize that a healthy fed cow can give you this omega-3 that everybody thinks is like can only get from fish or even some vegetarian sources, but it's not true, right? It's a lot of misconceptions.
Yes, that's one of the things that makes me most excited. There's actually a paper out of the UK that did kind of a modeling of the different types of beef and could it be considered a good source. And they concluded that,
Mhm.
especially for people who don't consume fish, that yes, grass-fed beef can be considered. And I think it was like 40 milligrams of omega-3 per 100 gram serving would be their qualification standard, but they could be considered a good source of omega-3 fatty acids. And also, there's been a trial back in 2011 where they had people eat red meat that was high in omega-3s and not high in omega-3s, and significantly higher blood levels of omega-3 fatty acids were found from the grass-fed scenario. And
Mhm.
because up to 90,000, 84 to 90,000 Americans die every year due to omega-3 fatty acid deficiency, and some
Mhm.
people don't eat fish, I think we have to acknowledge that
Mhm.
beef, well-fed beef, grass-fed beef can be a really significant source.
Yeah, and so
And
every
liver. Yeah,
and
sorry,
liver, sorry, yeah, huge. Yeah.
liver is huge. Liver can have as many omega-3s as certain fish like
Mhm.
cod.
Mhm.
So yeah, really, really.
So you guys have the capsules because like I mean I'm even in this health space and I find it hard to eat liver. Like some people actually like it. I even tried to do the raw cubes and like swallow them and like I can't do it. I just can't. So you guys have your organ blend too, right? And we miss the organs and that's where like most so much nutrient density we're taught to eat the muscle, right? Which is great and you're doing studies and showing that there's healthy fats in it. But how nutrient rich are these organs, right?
Right, and I love that you said that because that is why we made the product. Because when I was pregnant, I realized organ meats are the most nutrient-dense foods in the world. Literally, they are nature's multivitamins, and I could
Mhm.
not choke them down. I froze them, I put them in the balls. Anyway, Dr. Ty Beal, there was a paper, I think 2022, where they looked at all the foods, and then they looked at, and this was the really key element, right? Because you can have all of these different most nutrient-dense foods. They're mostly plants coming out of those algorithms for various reasons. But this one looked at the nutrients that most of us are deficient in worldwide. And
Mhm.
organ meats, like I think like 5 of the top 10 were organ meats, heart, liver, kidney, spleen, and we're not eating them. And they are the nutrients that we need.
Mhm.
There's also really cool research. I don't know if you know, from 1934, some physicians won the Nobel Prize for the finding that beef liver cured pernicious anemia. They always thought it was
So we
something.
use, yeah.
Oh, good. So you know, but yeah, so for iron related issues, there's an anti-fatigue factor. It contains highly bioavailable iron, and
Mhm.
protein. And yeah, I mean, organ meats, they're having a resurgence for really good reason because it's something we've just completely tossed out of the American diet, modern
Yeah.
American diet, and we are suffering because of
Yeah,
it.
they wanted to throw in grains and, all these highly processed foods, and like it's just been depleting us really. And then, making it trendy, like, this whole fake meat thing that's coming down the thing. Like, read what's in your food. Do you think that's healthier for you for them to make something look like meat? Like, it's
Oh,
disgusting.
yeah, and a lot of those are coming from conventionally raised inputs, right? Full of, some GMOs and corn and soy. And Dr. Van Vliet and Fred Provenza actually did a profiling study on plant-based burgers versus meat, which seems like obvious that they're two
Mhm.
different things, but it was like 90% of the metabolites were very different, though the nutrition label was the same. That's what people
Wow.
need to move beyond. It's like, yes, you can match the protein, the
Mhm.
carbohydrate, and the fiber, but that doesn't translate to the same language in your body because they're
Mhm.
very different foods. And yeah, plant-based burgers. Also, a lot of times the proteins aren't as bioavailable, and then the plant-based ingredients can inhibit absorption. And so
Mhm.
there's just a lot of problems. And I feel sad for the generation, like my son's generation, who there's this messaging, right? That
Yeah.
he came home, some people in his school had said, there's a club, you can't be a part of it if you're eating meat. And these are the nutrients that
Mhm.
kids need most to
Yeah.
develop properly. So yeah, I'm really passionate about that. Plant-based burgers are not the same. They're not the same.
No, none of that. Anything. Like, I remember, I mean, I don't know if this happened to you, but you're sick, you don't know much, and it's like, oh, people say vegan. I did the vegan thing. Like, this is why I talk to the thing. Like, I
Mm.
did 3 months of vegan. I felt really good for like a few weeks, and then I
Oh,
crashed, right? And
yeah.
then that was like my whole learning thing, and that was only a small thing. I've eaten meat my entire life. It was just like in those moments, and then, I went to this retreat and it was 100% vegan, and anyways, I felt terrible, really, like looking back, like so bloated, all of that. But there's a big problem with B12 and with vitamin A. But I went to, at that time, oh, there's a vegan expo, and like some of the food vendors were, one vendor was making its food look like chicken wings using seitan. Do you know what that is? That, like, just concentrated gluten, just like the most inflammatory food in the world, shaped like a chicken wing with all this fake barbecue sauce. Like, come on. Like, we have to know that that's not healthier than eating like something from the earth, right? So,
Yeah, I was just gonna say too, you have to realize food manufacturers make a lot in processed foods, and that's exactly what most of these vegan compilations are. And that you can make a ton of money. And I have a lot in common with vegans, right? I care deeply about where my food comes from and
too.
environmental sustainability. And so yeah, like you tried it. I've had bouts where I've tried it. I don't feel good, but I appreciate the goals right there.
Yeah.
But yeah, at the end of the day, I just think a
Yeah.
lot of people are being duped into eating highly processed foods that are definitely not better for them and could end up in really dangerous nutrient deficiencies, especially for kids.
Hmm. And
Love.
you talk a lot, you were talking about, the soy crops, the corn crops, and we know that they're also riddled with like glyphosate that affects our gut microbiome, right? But also, I work with athletes, and what I see a lot of muscle tears, ligament tears, like more than ever in these younger populations.
Mm.
And, there's been some evidence that like glyphosate, the glycine molecule in glyphosate could be getting made into the collagen, right?
Mhm.
So, and then causing these kinks in the chain. Also, there's calcium dysregulation. There's a lot of stuff that we're finding, but that's when things become really important, like replacing that collagen with healthier levels of glycine, right? So you can kick out those bad ones. So your bone broth protein is like rich in collagen in your body, and people love that product, rightly so. I started using it right away when I got it, and honestly, I've noticed like my hair, I got really sick in 2010, but I got really sick again in 2021, even though I was eating paleo and doing all of that. But so I had to, learn again another root cause that was missed in 2010. For me, it ended up being Lyme disease, which affects your collagen and your hyaluronic acid. And my hair was falling out and all of that. So, I'm definitely noticing a difference with all of that personally with my skin and stuff too, using the bone broth. And I don't, give these compliments easily. So
Oh.
yeah, tell us about the bone broth protein.
Yeah, well, I love that you brought up that glycine kind of kicking it out. Like if you can keep your glycine stores adequate, because there's some really fascinating stuff about glycine, right? Glycine makes up about a third of collagen, one of the most prominent amino acids in it. And it's, again, something that most of us aren't eating. It's found in, animal skin, right? Like pork skins
Hmm.
and things like that. But there's a really fascinating paper that came out in, I think, 2009 and said that the amount of glycine that we make isn't tied to how much we need, as long
Hmm.
as we weigh over, like 100 pounds. And that so many of us are suffering from a glycine deficiency, which is actually causing us to age more rapidly, because
Hmm.
glycine is one of the building blocks for glutathione, which helps us to age more gracefully, and bile salts and all of these other processes in our body. And so, yes, I think glycine, not only for its ability to potentially help us build collagen and kick out glyphosate, but also just to make sure that our body has the antioxidants and can produce them endogenously. So yeah, glycine is amazing. And
Hmm.
collagen supplementation has been shown to help your skin, your gut, your joints. Even I saw a study where they had people with IBS or constipation and bloating, and they just supplemented them with collagen every day. And a lot of them had changes in their bowel health, I think in only like 1 month. So again, it's one of those foods that our modern diet has just left out. It's having a resurgence, but it is. And people will say, oh, well, it's not a complete protein, but it's
Hmm.
providing amino acids that the
Hmm.
body that we are not taking in and that our body
Hmm.
can use to rebuild collagen. So I think it's really important. And ours is sourced from grass-fed and finished cows, of course. And
Hmm.
then the thing that's different is we use bones, as opposed to most come from the hide and the hooves. And as
Hmm.
you might imagine, to get it in from the hide and hooves often takes a lot more harsh processing methods. And so
Hmm.
we use only water. We boil the bones down. And then what you also receive is not only the collagen, but you'll have nutrients like
Hmm.
glucose, like gags, like joint healing nutrients,
Hmm.
as well as the minerals that you'll find in bone. And perhaps what makes ours the most popular is that the flavor is insane. So we have a chocolate that everybody loves, that I drink daily, and then we
Hmm.
also have a vanilla, obviously, an unflavored for someone if they just want to put it in their smoothie. But we're
Hmm.
coming out with the dulce de leche, which is
Ooh.
actually what I think is our best work yet. So pretty excited about that.
That sounds delicious.
Yes, it is. We just had a lot of our team come over and they got to try it, and they
Hmm.
all gave it 10 out of 10.
And you also have the whey protein. And I think what people don't understand about whey, because I feel like whey started to get like a bad name because it's like the whole part of dairy thing. But if
Yeah,
you can handle whey and you're not actually sensitive to it, whey also helps increase your glutathione. Like it shows, right?
absolutely. It's got a lot of cysteine. So that's another one of those amino acids that you need to build glutathione. And in these trials, it's like I came in with a paleo template, but when you step back, there's a lot of benefits. I was just reading some of the papers yesterday of these odd chain saturated fatty acids, uh,
Hmm.
pentadecanoic acid, heptapentadecanoic acid, so that are found in dairy fats, that it
Hmm.
looks like dairy, consumption of dairy for those who can tolerate it,
Hmm.
has a benefit. And you see a lot of these people who live with longevity, say
Hmm.
like in Andorra, a lot of them are sheep herders. You know what
Hmm.
I mean? So whey also provides, it is a very complete protein, high in
Hmm.
branched chain amino acids that will help us build muscle mass, right? That's why you'll see like if you're trying to like put on some gains or make some gains. A lot of bodybuilders use whey, and
Mhm.
that's one of the reasons why. And the thing that's interesting about ours too is grass-fed finished, but also we add colostrum.
Mhm.
Colostrum, is that mother's milk. It's that it's liquid gold essentially. It
Mhm.
has immunoglobulins and growth
Mhm.
factors and lots of really cool compounds that enhance immunity. So, yeah, I cannot speak highly enough about whey for those who can tolerate it. A lot of people also, there's not a lot of lactose, right? So, it's a very, very low amount. So, even if you are lactose intolerant, it could still work for you. And
Mhm.
I'm always a proponent of as diverse a diet as possible,
Mhm.
within, of obviously listening to your body. But yeah, I love the whey protein powder. The collagen protein powder is great too. I think
Mhm.
they both have a very important place.
Yeah, I agree. And it's interesting because we work with patients a lot that can't handle any dairy, including whey, but then we clean up their gut a little bit in that we lower parasitic load.
Yeah.
And when you lower parasitic load, your enzyme function goes up and you can start to handle more foods, right? You get more oral tolerance. So like just lowering your overall toxic load and like supporting the liver, even you can support the liver just by taking organs, right? Which you guys have available for people. But you also have spices that are all organic and people don't understand how much herbs can help bring out nutrients in your food. So you have like rosemary, right, which is a popular one to eat with meat because and when you're cooking meat, there's obviously some oxidation that happens. So you can counter it. Is that how you came up with your seasonings and
Oh yeah, I mean, I have a book and it's back there. It's Dr. Agarwal. I don't know, he studied spices, specifically turmeric, but basically these are medicine. Like it's so
Mhm.
how can we get people to add more spices into their life? But yeah, rosemary is really well known for its brain properties. And if you marinate meat, right, with these spices, it will reduce the amount of oxidative byproducts and potentially be healthier. You see that when people there's like this relationship with meat eating and cancer that some people believe, but then
Mhm.
when you add fruits and vegetables, herbs and spices, it seems to be able to counteract that. Because I'm
Mhm.
not afraid of meat in the first place. I think there's other variables that we're looking at that.
Of course.
Yes, but absolutely, the more spices you can have. I actually try to double the amount of spices, turmeric, ginger, rosemary, garlic. Talk about
Mhm.
like helpful for your gut
Yeah.
and parasitic. All of these nutrients. And also, we did a spice blend specifically because I don't love to spend a lot of time in the kitchen, and we want to make it easy, right?
Mhm.
Just put this on a steak. It's a delicious meal, and so not
Mhm.
only are you getting like a medicine cabinet, but you're also just you're saving time and you're preparing things that your children might actually enjoy. So
Yeah.
that's what spice blends were about for us, and they're organic, obviously, and not irradiated.
Yeah. Even rosemary helps for all the oxidative damage from that we're getting exposed to all these different electromagnetic frequencies that are damaging to our health, and rosemary can help. So people should definitely be incorporating different spices into their different routines. But you guys also have, I saw, all of these recipes and stuff that people can use your bone broth, and you've created all of these
Yeah.
different different things you can make with them.
Oh, yeah, we have tons of recipes to make it easy. There's like a recipe for our bone broth protein powder, chocolate bone broth that's like a brownie, and
Mm,
we take our, we get our milk from a farm right down the street, and then we take our bone broth protein powder and we make an ice cream. Absolutely
mm,
delicious. Yeah, I mean, and every day almost my son asks for, hot chocolate. And all it is our milk with the protein powder, the collagen. So it is such a versatile product. And he also, the whey, actually the vanilla whey specifically tastes kind of like ice cream as well. So we'll make
mm.
the vanilla ice cream with the whey.
I gotta try
Yeah,
the vanilla.
there's so many, and even greens powders you can make into cookies, like no big
Mhm.
cookies. But yeah, we have tons of recipes. Every Friday, actually, we send out a recipe for our products. And
Amazing.
it's a lot of fun.
So lots of people have like their views on greens powder being like high in heavy metals. And I mean, I don't think people understand food that well. And like then they highlight these things like there was just recently like chocolate has high heavy metals or lead. But the highest lead source is like pepper. Everyone eats pepper, like, and no one, kind of talks about that. So can you speak to that and the whole?
Yeah,
And
well, I think it's interesting because anytime you concentrate something, and right, fruits and vegetables, they will pick up heavy metals
of
from
course.
depending on whatever soil they're growing in, right? And so, yeah, I think that heavy metals are a reality. You obviously don't want ones that are dangerously high in heavy metals, which is something we test for, especially when it comes to like spirulina or
Hmm.
something that when you grow that wrong, it is porous, right? It's like a
Hmm.
sponge. It sucks
Hmm.
them up right around you. So what we do differently with our greens powder is our spirulina is third party tested at like European Union level testing, which
Yeah.
is far, far lower. But yeah, you want to be careful. And if it's grown in contaminated soil,
Yeah.
then you will have a problem. But you can't necessarily eliminate all heavy metals
No.
from your diet. And if you do use a greens powder, there probably will be a level of them. You just want to make sure it's not an excessive level and that they're
Yeah.
testing and that they're using strict standards and regulations.
Hmm. Hmm. So you guys are testing yours. That's amazing. And
Oh, yeah.
spirulina is like amazing. And again, we use that a lot for our athletes because not only does it have like this good nutrient profile and it is porous, so it binds up waste. We use it like for when athletes are in their games, like in between periods and stuff like that for energy production, natural energy, and it's powerful.
It's amazing. It's one of
Hmm.
those ingredients again that people in other countries use a lot and we
Hmm.
just don't. But it has, one of the most nutrient dense foods. Like NASA considered it like a gram of spirulina, like eating a plate of fruit and vegetables. And
Hmm.
there are anti-fatigue. It helps with, the production of antioxidants. It
Hmm.
contains a lot of antioxidants. Those pigments in it are absolutely powerful. Just like
Hmm.
so many different impacts. There was even a little trial I read that was really cool. It's like they just had spirulina and their metabolic health changed, right? They lost a little bit of weight, their body
Hmm.
composition. And I've noticed a profound, when I start my day, whenever I break my fast with, I actually mix creatine into my greens powder. It's just another thing I do, but my appetite is so much more regulated. And
Hmm.
so, yeah, spirulina, but it has to be high quality spirulina. Because like I said, they grow them a lot of times in areas where there's like heavy amounts of plane traffic or whatever that
Yeah.
or feel, it really depends on where it's grown.
Hmm. Hmm. And certain things are bioaccumulators and spirulina's porous, so 100% like,
Yep.
yeah, yeah. So what is like your daily routine for like eating as a nutritionist that's owning Paleo Valley and like you've got your tea right there. I see it.
I do. Yeah. Oh my gosh. And this is one of my favorite things is our electrolytes powder. I love
Oh, love
I put
electrolytes.
electrolytes into my tea. I make something called electro tea. So this is
Mm.
like ashwagandha tulsi tea because I run a little hot. I'm pretty high energy, so I need to
Hmm.
sometimes take myself down a few notches, and then I put our orange electrolytes into that. So that's usually my first thing. Then I'll do some of our. We have a coffee that I love, and I have both genes for Alzheimer's, ApoE44, and so I'm always
Hmm.
looking for ways to improve brain health, which is why we made our coffee with mushrooms and then something called
Mm.
factor, which is the coffee fruit extract. So then I will get into some coffee decaf because I can't do caffeine. I've noticed that was actually one of the most powerful things that I eliminated and finally like understood my relationship to. So no caffeine, but do the decaf coffee. And then I will break my fast. Usually 16 hours, and sometimes once a week I go a little bit longer depending on where I'm at in my cycle. But then I try to always have fermented foods right away. So whether
Hmm.
that's one of our beet sticks or some sauerkraut, and then I'll usually do, collagen, or protein powders. I try to get 30 to 50 grams of protein in every meal. So that's what it usually is protein, either, a meat stick or our collagen powder and then vegetables. I eat so many plants too. Like I'm a huge proponent of animal products, but most of what I consume is still, a huge salad. I'll make a lot of stir-fried vegetables.
Hmm.
Sometimes I'll do smoothies, but that's what it is. It's just whole foods, high quality animal products, high quality fruits and vegetables, a lot of tea, a lot of
Yeah.
coffee, and bone broth, collagen.
Hmm.
And, I'm also working really diligently on my omega-3 fatty acid index right now. So fish is a big part of my day usually too.
Nice. So you brought up the coffee, which I forgot to talk about right now because I feel like that's part of everyone's day. Like you know, mostly like everyone does coffee, and like you can do it so much better if it's not moldy and it's organic and, you know, extra benefit when you have those added mushrooms. So can you talk a little bit about your coffee?
Yeah, we love our coffee. So it's
Mhm.
sourced from Peru and Honduras, from
Mhm.
sustainable farms, roasted using solar power, all organic, of course, tested for mycotoxins because mold, we don't want mold to be, or coffee to be a source of mold. And then we added one thing, like most people just use the coffee bean and then the
Mhm.
coffee fruit kind of goes by the wayside,
Yeah.
but it's actually a powerful source of the polyphenols that make coffee so valuable in the first place.
Mhm.
And so we add the coffee fruit back in, and it's an extract called neurofactor, and it has been shown to increase the levels of BDNF, which is essentially brain fertilizer, by
Mhm.
over 100%. So we do that for my brain and everyone else's brain who drinks it, but then also the mushrooms like lion's mane, which again, you know, has a great effect on nerve growth factor and BDNF. And in one clinical trial, and it was a small clinical trial, but it's still relevant, it actually reversed mild cognitive decline for people who
Mhm.
took it, but only as long as they took it, which I think was kind of interesting. And then
Mhm.
cordyceps was another one. Cordyceps helps produce ATP. They call it cordyceps because energy and stamina, but also, you know, more like reproductive, sexual benefits as well. And then there's shiitake. You know, shiitake has a lot of immune benefits. And then also reishi. Reishi is kind of like that mushroom that helps balance you, bring your stress levels. It's adaptogenic, and so kind of takes us where we need to go. But yeah,
Mhm.
these mushrooms are powerful sources of polysaccharides, which help beneficial gut bugs grow, help modulate our immune system. What's interesting about the mushrooms we use specifically is mushrooms have 3 stages of life, right? A lot of the mushrooms you consume today are from the mycelium or the root structure because it's really easy. It's easier and faster, but they are grown into grains, right? Into a substrate, rice,
Oh,
other grains. And so it's impossible to separate those grains out from the mycelium. You can't do it. And so what happens is sometimes 40% of the product in mushrooms is grain, and they don't really label it, which is a problem for people
wow.
who might be intolerant to grains. But also those compounds, those polysaccharides that are responsible for the powerful effects of mushrooms are very watered down, as you might imagine, because
Mhm.
um, they're, you know, alpha glucans and beta glucans. You want to find brands that are paying attention to the beta glucans because
Mhm.
alpha glucans are also in grains. And so
Mhm.
they can say, you know, high levels, but it won't necessarily be the same type of levels that will have been tested in clinical trials or shown to be beneficial. So we only use the fruiting body. So mushrooms come through the mycelium and then they have a fruiting body. And so when we source our mushrooms, it's specifically from the fruiting body and put into this coffee. And I notice a powerful effect. I'm one of those really sensitive people, but when I drink the coffee, it's kind of like an on switch for my brain.
Mhm. I haven't tried it yet, but I'm going to try it and I'm excited to.
Yes.
But I do a mushroom coffee. Like that's what I do, a mushroom coffee with like an organic, it's like an instant one that has like and so but I you know, I like switching it up and not having the same thing all the time. So I'm really excited to try that.
Yeah, and I mean, what surprised me most about our coffee, the feedback is that it doesn't hurt people's stomach. So it's considered a low acid coffee too. There's
Mhm.
not, you know, but so most people say, wow, this is the only one that I can drink. But
Mhm.
yeah, and I
Mhm.
like your approach where you just kind of diversify again.
Yeah, yeah. I'm excited to try it because I have it, but I hadn't tried it because I didn't look into it enough, and that's why we're talking right now. But I did. It used to overstimulate me or like hurt my digestive system. So like I found one that worked and I've been sticking to that, but I'd love to have other things to try and other types of mushrooms in my coffee as well. I found that really helpful. Actually, when my heart went crazy in 2021, I got Lyme carditis had turned on. So in my story, like 2020, um, in 2020, I guess, 2010, that's when I was tentatively diagnosed with MS, but I had severe gastrointestinal stuff. I had like severe, like acute, like neurological issues, like Bell's palsy, all of this stuff. And
Wow.
when I look back now, it was textbook neuroborreliosis, right? It was like I had Lyme disease in my brain very acutely. And I never found that out, but I worked backwards, and I got rid of parasites. I eradicated, got my immune system to a point where I guess it got it under control. But in 2021, everything kind of came crashing down. And it was only retrospectively that I realized I had Lyme, but it affected my heart this time. And they told me to, I mean, I have not used conventional medicine, emergency medicine. I haven't had to, thank God. But I went to the ER, and the first thing they told me is like, I have tachycardia. My PVCs are crazy. I have troponin in my bloodstream. They're not taking anything seriously, you know, because it's coming kind of in waves. So they're like, it's not a heart attack, but whatever. And their only suggestion to me was don't have coffee. And I was like, really? You think that's what's causing this? At 4 a.m. I'm here in an acute situation, and you think
Oh,
it's coffee. So anyways, I cut out coffee anyways because I was feeling so hyperstimulated. But the only coffee I was having was the one with the mushrooms in it. And it was low acid. And actually, when I added it back in, because I did 2 weeks without coffee, it actually slowed my heart rate and started to help me heal. And it had the reishi mushroom and the low acid. And because I was testing my blood pressure multiple times. And when I had my coffee, it was lowering it. So, you know, yours too, with the lower acid, when you add in that mushrooms, and that has probably too with the whole, the, the aspect of coffee that you're adding back in, that the fruit, right?
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
sure that's going to be even better. But I'm just like, I feel like coffee gets a bad name, but bad coffee is bad coffee. And like this very acidic coffee is completely different physiologically than than coffees like yours. So
And it's crazy because I've heard something like 95% of the coffee grown is sprayed with pesticides too. So
yeah.
again, you just never know. And is there mold? Is there pesticides? You know,
Hmm.
it's so many
Exactly.
variables. I love what you're saying though. Bad coffee is bad coffee, but coffee has a lot of health benefits. So
Yeah, for your liver, for bowel movements. Bowel movements are huge for us. We're like, you have to get the waste out. And sometimes, and that helps stimulates the liver. Like people use coffee enemas, right? Like
yes.
in order to support the liver increases. Again, we talked about glutathione. So yeah, no, we love coffee, and you know, some people can't do caffeine, but a lot of people are fine with it, and you find what works for you. And that's obviously something that you've found out for you and I've found out for me. So yeah, it's just food can be poison or it can be
Yeah.
nourishing, right? And that's what you are offering to people with the snacks, especially like if you're on a plane, there's not good food. You can have these snacks. I haven't tried your bars yet. They look really intriguing.
I'm excited that you haven't tried them. I absolutely love them. So the chocolate and the apple are my favorite. But the point with the bars, they were our second product. And we were like, okay, everything is free of stuff. But what are they actually putting in them that's going to
Yes.
value, change your health? And so
Hmm.
it has so many superfoods, spirulina, kale, strawberry, all the things, and then high quality collagen protein around 9 to 10. So the carbohydrate to protein ratio is great.
Hmm.
Obviously no refined sugars, no sugar alcohols, nothing that's going to mess with your gut or give you that bubble gut like I get with when I eat most of everything else. And then it has ingredients that promote health, all
Hmm.
of those superfoods and things. So, and obviously gluten-free and dairy-free. So they're absolutely delicious. They're one of my favorites and they're super satiating.
Yeah, and there's no bars that where I read the ingredients and don't instantly feel like I'd have a source like and that like I like too. I find a hard time finding bars. So usually like things I grab are like meat sticks and stuff like that for like when I'm traveling or need to have like kind of something on the go too. I mean, I was on the plane and I had your meat sticks, and I had brought like these just as something to put like so I could have like a meal on a long flight. We brought like, the almond flour wraps from a company, and we were putting that, and I had olives, and I'm breaking it up, and the flight attendant's like looking at me like, you don't want your meal? I'm like, no, I'm gonna have having this.
Oh, I'm telling you, that's why we made them. Traveling is crazy, right? And so
Yeah.
when I was traveling, I was eating apples and nuts, and yeah, I was just like, this is not gonna do. But yeah, our goal is to have them available as a choice on airplanes one day because
Oh,
it would just
yeah.
make people feel so much better.
You
Yeah.
there's certain airlines that look like they're going that way because like the snack choices are changing a little bit. I keep forgetting to note which ones they are because I end up flying with different airlines just because I go for sheer convenience instead of like the
Yeah.
points kind of system. Um, and I'm like, I need to start making notes because some of them are really bad, and then some of them are offering like a little bit better snacks. Like they're definitely getting better. So they should be the ones that you reach out to.
Yeah, I think Southwest, I was impressed because they had, last time we traveled, there was a fruit bar. I was like,
Yes, that was
bar.
one of them. They had a fruit bar, and then their chocolate thing was actually like just quinoa chocolate, but at least gluten-free because like usually it's just like biscuits. Like people don't even give nuts that much anymore because so many nut allergies, right? So,
Right. Yeah.
or actually probably, I don't think I've seen them anywhere except for, I don't know. Anyway, but there would be, there's a great option. And, even those meat sticks can be toxic if they're not grass-fed, grass-finished, done properly, all the right kind of spices in there. So we love what you've done, like creating these products that help people be healthier based on your own struggles, right? Just
Yeah.
creating this passion project. And that's the kind of stuff that we want people to have also. So, but you guys are available in Canada and everything too. We're in Canada. We work with a lot of people in the States, but it's easy to get them here, right?
Yeah,
It's
we
all
ship to
food
Canada as
products.
well. Yeah. But we're not available in retail, so we just keep it direct to consumer
Yeah,
online.
that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's what we've chosen because if you go into retail, you have to mark everything up. We want our food to be accessible, right?
Mhm.
Everybody should be able to access high quality food. And if we put it in retail, that would change, and we don't want it to.
Yeah, well, honestly, this has been so amazing. I've honestly learned so much, and I want to talk to you more about all of the research you're doing and everything because honestly, the whole omega-3, we didn't even go into like heart health, and everybody is like scared of cholesterol. Like, I don't know if you have anything you want to say about that right now, but
Yeah, I will just touch on that. So
okay.
the research, Dr. Bill Harris over at Omega Quant, so they test what's called the omega-3 index. I don't know if you work with this test in your practice,
Yep.
but you're basically looking at the percentage of omega-3s in your red blood cells. And there is research to suggest that is as important a predictor of heart health as like cholesterol, which is kind of a crude metric, right? So there, plasma, the amount of cholesterol in your bloodstream does not necessarily, if you have high levels, doesn't necessarily increase your risk. There was a study that showed 75% of people admitted for heart attacks had cholesterol within the normal range.
Hmm.
Cholesterol deficiency can result in many, many very dangerous symptoms. And some people like me, I have ApoE44. Like I said, we run with slightly higher cholesterol levels. And
Hmm.
most importantly, dietary cholesterol doesn't necessarily translate to higher levels of blood cholesterol.
Hmm.
So I think, yeah, I think focusing on cholesterol for some people isn't as important as it's been made out to be. And
Hmm.
potentially focusing on your omega-3 to omega-6 fatty acid index, or the amount of omega-3s you're consuming, could be something equally or even more powerful, because most of us are deficient in omega-3 fatty acids. They're going to improve the function of your cardiovascular system, of your immune system.
Hmm.
Go really into the immune stuff, but if you have more omega-6s in your cells, what happens is it sends different messages out into your more inflammatory messages
Hmm.
than if you have omega-3s, which is typically, not always, but more anti-inflammatory. And we know we're all suffering from inflammation. And we know that heart disease is related to inflammation, right?
Hmm.
Maybe even more so than your level of cholesterol. So if we
Hmm.
focus on omega-3s, getting higher quality omega-3s, I think we could reduce our risk of disease and also potentially live longer, because in Japan, for example, where they have some of the longest living populations, or did until recently, they have like omega-3 indexes of 8 to 10, whereas in America a lot of us are hanging around 4. So people believe that is one of the reasons they might live longer. And originally, when omega-3s were discovered, it was like in Eskimo populations where they saw, wow, they're consuming enormous amounts of fat, sometimes tons of seal and whale blubber, and they don't have this risk of heart disease that you see in other populations. And they kind of started to believe it's because of these omega-3 fatty acids and because of the signals that come out of them and because of their anti-inflammatory impact. So that wasn't a small blurb. I just got a little carried away. But
No, I love
anyway,
it.
all I'm saying is omega-3 fatty acids are powerful. Most of us are not consuming enough of them. And
Mhm.
so, and cholesterol, dietary cholesterol, is not the disease-causing culprit that was once believed. Even Ansel Keys himself said, and he was like the discoverer of the hypothesis, right? That animal foods are saturated fat specifically. But anyway, that cholesterol isn't causing elevations in your cholesterol. It
Mm-mm.
sounds like it would, but it's not always true.
Mm-mm. And even the studies like that I went into on cholesterol, because mine went sky high when I had infections, right? I'm
Right.
talking like 10, which for you guys is like 500, you know? So say cholesterol is supposed to be at 200 for the US guidelines or US metrics, and ours is 5.2 is like the healthy. So I'm double, like at 10, right? And I treat the infection, right? And it drops right back down to normal, right? It's working for your immune system too, and it's trying to lower inflammation. So when you do have these inflammatory like cytokines or anything being released because you do have that imbalance in your omega-3s, then you do see higher cholesterol, but it's doing a job. It is trying to help you. It is trying to balance things. So cholesterol is it's what our cells are made of. It makes our hormones. It activates vitamin D, so it's for our immune system. So everybody is trying to lower this cholesterol when meanwhile it's signaling or it's trying to do something when it's sky high. So why don't we try and figure out what is it trying to do, right? Instead of just being terrified of this one marker that, like just like you said, studies on low cholesterol show the highest all-cause mortality. I think people should really like start to, learn more about cholesterol, because that's definitely not it. And when you're eating healthy, grass-fed, grass-finished, when you're getting that omega-3 like you're talking about, you're actually protecting your cardiovascular and you're eating other whole foods and not huge processed foods, right?
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I think we need to focus on something different. I mean, it's fine to focus on it a little bit, but like you said, even thyroid function, if your
Hmm.
thyroid is impaired, you might have higher levels of cholesterol, but it's not because
Yes.
you need to eat fewer animal products.
No.
It's because there's something else happening. So,
Exactly. Hypothyroid, higher cholesterol, but probably, again, toxic load. What's your body trying to do? Like it's always trying to do something. We need to start to investigate more as opposed to just, you know, medicate
ah,
and put the blame on things that aren't the blame. Like it's still crazy to me that the whole, again, we're thinking healthy fats like nice grass-fed butter or something like that compared to like margarine made from God knows what, processed like crazy, like
uh,
what is
well,
that fatty acid profile?
oh, I know it is scary, and you find out how like Crisco is made, right? In back in 1910 when they had this surplus of cottonseed oil that
Mhm.
they were using to lubricate machinery, and then
Ugh.
someone was like, "Oh, hey, why don't we
Yeah.
feed it to people?" And then launch this massive marketing campaign and just tell them it's healthier, even though there's no direct evidence of this whatsoever. And
Uh-uh.
in fact, we found out trans fats killed hundreds of thousands of people every single year. And yeah, this influx of vegetable oils,
Yeah.
huge amounts of omega-6 fatty acids in vegetable oils that has never been part of our diet, never
Mm-mm.
been part of any diet before. So this is an experiment when we are consuming these concentrated oils and turning away animal products or not consuming enough omega-3 fatty acids. That has widespread impacts. And I think that we're experiencing that.
Yeah, and that goes to your tallow, like that tallow that you have for cooking, because again, everyone's frying up these terrible oils and meanwhile they've because everything got a bad name and the wrong name. So, tallow is something healthy that we use to cook. Ghee, what other things, or do you think is healthy?
Oh yeah, so I like the more stable oils. So it's interesting, right? Vegetables are going to be higher in omega-6 fatty acids than say monounsaturated fatty acids like in olive oil or saturated fatty acids, which you find in animal products. Now, monounsaturated fatty acids, they're more stable, right? So you don't want high heat with the more fragile polyunsaturated oils because they become oxidized. And so I cook in tallow almost exclusively, but also sometimes butter, right?
Mhm.
And coconut oil.
Mhm.
Avocado oil is okay too. And olive oil on low temperatures. I use that for like stir fries and stuff. Actually, I take a little shot of olive oil every day because it has a lot of really powerful benefits. But
Mhm.
olive oil is more of my salad, my light heat,
Mhm.
and then butter, tallow, and coconut oil are very, very stable fats
Mhm.
I use for higher heat cooking. And in
Well,
our restaurant, we
oh, you have
have,
a restaurant?
yeah, we do. Our
Yeah.
first location called Wild Pastures Burger Company, we cook the fries in tallow. McDonald's used to do this, and then they got scared about animal fats. This consumer for science of the public interest, I think there's this organization that freaked people out about using animal fats, and we went the wrong way. I feel like, and people are coming back. So people come to our restaurants from like miles away, like Denver to Boulder, just so they can have French fries that are cooked in a more stable fat.
Yeah, I would definitely come for that next time I'm in
Yes,
Colorado.
you have to.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much. I think we touched on almost every product and how much more benefit you can have when they're healthy, teaching people about these oils, like cooking in the proper oil, the omega-3 profiles when you're eating these grass-fed, grass-finished meat, not to mention venison, or we didn't even get into chickens, how they're fed, but I'm sure you guys are doing that properly where they're eating bugs and not vegetarian, right? But
That's
chickens
what it
trying to be
makes me so mad. Yes.
vegetarian.
It's like in cage free and free range. It's like, yes, they are not vegetarians. They are
Yeah.
they're foragers, right? Insects, worms, whatever. And
Yeah.
they should be on pasture, and their omega-6 and omega-3 fatty acid profile changes dramatically when they're just fed grain in a warehouse. And cage free and free range can still mean they're in a warehouse, but that they just have access. And sometimes they
Yeah.
have access to a pasture, sometimes like a dirt plot. So yeah, it's unfortunate. But yes, we have pasture raised chicken and pork. And we're also working on ways to further improve that ratio. My husband's growing stuff in our basement currently, like a new forage. We're always working on, because
I love that.
we want to be the company that always prioritizes health in all of our products. So
I
yeah.
love that. I'm so glad we talked. I learned even more about how passionate you guys are, and I definitely will be telling everyone about your products. And yeah, so where can people find you? You just said you have Wild Pastures. You can come to your actual restaurant where you're cooking the fries in tallow, but where else can they find you?
Paleovalley.com, and then we have a meat delivery service called wildpastures.com. That's all regeneratively sourced in America. And then yeah, Wild Pastures Burger if you're in the Colorado area. People come from Denver, but it is in Boulder. And we have, no seed oils, all regeneratively raised.
Wow.
Yeah, organic produce. And yeah, come visit us any of those places.
I wish it was closer. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it, and your passion project that we all get to enjoy. So thank you so much.
Thank you for being passionate about my project, because that's what keeps us going. So thank you.
Amazing.